What's up, guys? My name's Mikey, and you're watching To All the Crowded Rooms. Our channel has lots of various content, from interviews to live sets to a little trivia game called Who Wants to Be a Scene Kid, which is basically exact ripoff of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but just with like Warped Tour type questions, everything from Tumblrcore, Crabcore to Crunkcore, you name it. If you're into that, hit subscribe. Today is a good one because we have Jesse and Dustin from With the Punches. How's it going, fellas?
Yo, what's going on, Mikey? How are you, man?
I am doing great. I'm very stoked to have you guys on because I grew up through the whole like pop punk resurgence era, and I always remember I never got to see you guys live until the reunion tour you guys did with City Lights, but I just remember loving your guys' record Seams and Stitches, and that being like a crucial album during that time.
That's cool. Thank you so much for that. That's really kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, for the fans that are listening, I'm sure everyone wants to know, you guys broke up in 2013, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can call it that. It was just like we never really broke up. We just kind of stopped touring and couldn't be as active. But I think that has more to do with just like we're getting old.
Right. No.
But it's like one of those things where we've, like there was never a point where we weren't all talking to each other every day. So
still homies.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, even after we were playing what were the last shows, we were emailing demos at that time of, stuff that would just have an open-ended date on it, but something we wanted to pursue. So yeah, when we stopped touring and we kind of called a hiatus, we really just kind of needed time to get foundations individually, outside of being in a full-time touring band, which is challenging and awesome at the same time. We just had some growing up to do and some living to do at that point.
That's sick. Yeah, when I was doing research on you guys, it seemed like you guys played a lot of last shows.
Yeah. Oh man, we have that terrible, can't let go of it feeling about the band because we enjoy it so much. So many bands that we know of or I've heard stories about, they split up for reasons where like the members kind of have a big challenge or they disagree completely or other reasons that they stopped doing it. But, ours was never really that thing towards the end. We just loved it so much. We just genuinely needed to kind of like recreate for ourselves. So the next phase after that was good for each of us, I think, personally and individually. But yeah, we had to kind of like back burner the band for a little bit, which was sad, but, so thankful for the interest level, like meeting people, even on that last run, like folks like yourself who didn't get to catch the gigs the years before. It was just cool to meet those faces along with the folks that have been coming out since day one. So.
Hell yeah. So when you say that like you guys like kind of fizzled out just to pursue individual things, what were those things like from around the time the band broke up to like today? Sure.
I'll take that one first. So I would say that, when we got off the road, I was working full-time. American Icon is a screen printing shop and business that my good friend started right in Newburgh. That's the town where I grew up. The shop was down the street from where my parents' house was. So when we were a touring band in the years before, I was picking up work there. A lot of what I was doing was printing your cousin, my buddy Marky's stuff with Glamour Kills. Yeah, for sure. There would be a lot of that in this podcast. And anybody who knows the band would know we'd mentioned GK a lot. But anyway, so yeah, the connectivity with myself, Mark's brand, and the print shop that I was pursuing, that was all like right around that time. So basically putting together some degree of secular work and career focus after the road was important. And I think we all kind of went our own ways with that. I've definitely spent the last few years kind of dipping my toes into as many different possibilities as I could find. So I've like worked in a few different fields, and I'm thankful for the opportunities I've had as I got off the road. It's been really nice to try a lot of new things. And right now I roast coffee professionally for a company. I'm a little further north than where I grew up, and so now I'm up near the Albany area. And that's something that I really enjoyed when I was on the road, obviously seeking out really good coffee when we were touring and such, as was part of the goal. And so that's what I'm up to now. And I've been enjoying so much the opportunity to pursue something new while also writing music and pursuing the things I love. So
That's fucking sick. Oh, do you know what you would love? There's this there's this band from Arizona called Sundressed,
okay.
and their lead singer, he has a podcast where they talk about pop punk and coffee.
Oh man, I gotta look it up. I haven't heard their band. Are they a pop punk band as well? Or?
Yeah, they're really good.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna look them up. That's cool.
Sick. And also to know, my family grew up in Newburgh, New York, so I'm pretty familiar with that area.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of the hometown. That's where the whole band started. Technically, the roots of everything we did started right in Newburgh.
Nice. What about you, Dustin?
Well, okay, so the band stops. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. And I have worked in like adolescent psych, like adolescent mental health care since right before we started with the Punches. So it was something I would do like when we were home from tours and stuff. So I kept doing that. And then we moved around a bit. I was still doing that stuff. And we moved to Asheville, North Carolina in 2016. And I became the music director at a therapeutic boarding school for kids. And so that was great. And doing that and then just like working on music on the side. And I have my own business. It's I make like embroidered patches of music gear, like record players and samplers. I'm like really big into hip hop and making beats and stuff. And so I just love that gear. Yeah. I like really have a deep love for that equipment and that music. So I started making those and it's been going for like 6 years now, which is cool. But yeah, so I do that a lot. And right now I'm in nursing school. So doing that, which is great. A little scary.
So you're about to switch it up?
Yeah. The school that I was working at, my wife and I bought a house at the end of December, and it's like an hour from where our house is. And so it just wasn't working out like that. So there's a hospital in the town where my house is, and they offered to put me through nursing school. So
wow.
Pay me to do that. So
what about you being a teacher, what do the kids think of with the Punches?
You know, it's weird. Like when I first started teaching, there was like one of the kids was like, "Oh, you were in a band? What's it called?" The Punches. She's like, "I literally have it on my iPod because like, the kids like can't have like Wi-Fi stuff, so they all have like old school iPods." And I was like, "No way, that's rad." And so I don't like. I'll mention that I was in a band, but I try not to like talk about what the name of my band was because I don't want to be like, it's weird to be like, "Oh yeah, check out my band." Yeah, and so, but inevitably, like a lot of the kids did go up and like Google me, like Google my name and find out what band I was in. They're like, "I saw a video of your band and everyone was jumping off the stage and it looked insane." I'm like, "Yes, that's what."
Yeah, your teacher was a rock star.
I wouldn't use that term, but yeah.
No, but you guys are playing some pretty big shows though, right?
Yeah, we got very fortunate to play some really great shows throughout the years, for sure. Yeah, Dustin and I both are like, we'll shy away from that as much as possible to say that, you know, we definitely wouldn't ever coin the term rock stars around us. We were living a very meager lifestyle while playing really great shows and having a lot of fun. We just weren't taking home big paychecks or anything of that nature. Yeah. So, but it was super fun. Yeah.
I think that's the case for most bands, though, especially
very true.
In that pop punk scene.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a very small select few that like really just like just break through that barrier. But
yeah.
But also to note, Jesse, I don't think you mentioned your band Dead Ahead after with the Punches.
Yeah, so I did get a chance to make some more music, and that actually was really fun for me as far as a project is concerned. A couple of the guys I worked with at the print shop we just started jamming on different ideas for writing. We liked a bunch of the same bands. The overarching concept of the band may be a little different than what we started with the Punches with. And I think that shows a little bit in the way the record came out. Still very much, it's just me singing. So I as much as I might wish to try and reimagine my voice, I still kind of sound like me. But yeah, I really dig those songs. I listened to them the other day after not hearing them for quite a while. That was a really fun project. Didn't play a lot of gigs, but really enjoyed the record we made. Our good friend Brendan Williams recorded it, and I think sonically it perfectly matches what I had hoped for when we went in to record, and that's a rare thing in music to, you know, have a sound dialed in, go into the recording process, and then have it actually delivered to you the way you heard it prior to. So that, in my experience, has always been a challenge. So Dead Ahead's like a big, you know, a bright piece for me music wise, where I can listen to those songs and say, damn, that sounds like what I hoped it would. So yeah, I really am stoked on those songs. I love that record. Anyone who's interested in it, you can get 7-inch available. Panic State has some copies of it. And you can stream it on Spotify if you want to check it out.
That's fucking sick. Yeah, no, when I was checking it out, I really liked it. It gave me I don't know if you guys like listen to like the newer Movie Life stuff, but I totally got that vibe. Oh,
cool. Yeah. Anything, you know, Vinnie's, you know, we can talk about it, but our stories kind of interwove too towards the progression with the Punches. We were seeing Vinnie and playing shows with Vinnie, both when he was solo and we were playing either acoustic or full band. And then also Avalanche was playing a lot of shows at that time. So we got to play a lot of shows together. Love the Movie Life stuff back when, and then also now, for sure. They were definitely a band that Dustin and I referenced a lot when we were first starting with the Punches, for sure. So yeah, Vinnie and Movie Life stuff, just a big thumbprint on my personal taste for music too.
Hell yeah. So as far as before with the Punches even formed, who were some of the idols that you guys were, before with the Punches started, who were some people you guys were idolizing as far as like rock stars go?
Okay, so I'll say that locally, if we started on the small scale, fortunate enough to have some really good venues and shows promoted in the Hudson Valley area, as you probably heard a lot of stories about, and then also got to experience for yourself too, going to the shows. The Poughkeepsie and Newburgh areas had a lot of really great touring acts come through and local bands. So when I was in high school, there were shows both at my school and then at the skate park around the corner and at the VFW in Newburgh, that all had bands that I almost didn't know which ones were local and not, because they were guys a couple years older than me, but always had it all together. So one of the first bands I remember from those days is Cooter, which later became Autopilot Off. The bass player of that band, Rob, was in Dead Ahead with me. Oddly enough, like I said, like a Newburgh connection, but I remember seeing that band and was super impressed by them. And New York City brought H2O to like my front door all the time. And that was the band where they were not only like fast and urgent, but Toby as the frontman of that band was really aiming for something positive. The message was overtly positive. And that was such a huge turning point for me, personally, about like my philosophies about both life and music and the pursuit of all of the above. So if I were to like kind of pin it apart, I would say like H2O was a huge piece of it, coming out of New York City, playing Poughkeepsie a lot. And because of them, the local bands that played, guys like I mentioned, like Cooter, Jerk Magnet, Next to Nothing, these are all like local bands in the Hudson Valley area that were big when were before me. And so I was looking up to those guys as that was happening, for sure.
What about as far as your vocal style goes? Because you have a very unique voice, like especially like in the pop punk scene. Like not a lot of people, like I don't hear you trying to sound like anyone else, basically.
I appreciate that, and I would take that as like the ultimate compliment, because I genuinely feel like the singers I liked the most, I probably sound the least like, and I think that's a good thing. I've always been proud of the fact that the singers that I would emulate in my mind weren't really what was being translated when I sang. So Ari Katz is the singer of Lifetime, and that band is like at the pinnacle for me. Chris Connolly,
Saves the day.
singer for Saves the Day, very different voice than mine, but I was heavily influenced by him. And so the list could continue on, but I don't know that I necessarily like grabbed too much from each one. I was just absorbing like a sponge when I was kind of like getting into the process of singing. It's pretty interesting too, because we started this topic on, like bands growing up around you. And I was a drummer when I was in bands early on, and I still love playing the drums. I didn't fancy myself a singer. I just kind of got the opportunity later on. Dustin helped me get an audition with another band years down the line a little bit. So I sang in a band well before I had the chops to do it. So
what band
I was
that?
learning on the fly. Okay, so Dustin and I lived in Austin, Texas, and we were watching a lot of the bands there in the local scene. Dustin was skating a lot at the time, went to the skate park down the street from us and met a guitar player in a band who was just so happened to mention they were looking for a singer. And so, he comes home to the apartment with the news like, hey man, there's this band, and like, you should audition to sing for him. Like, you could do it. Just tell him you sang in a band before. And I hadn't. So I went, I told them that I had, and these are ended up being very good friends of mine. Two members of that band, which was called Tomorrow's Too Late. The two members of that band are in the band Thieves. They're from Texas.
Yeah, that band rocks.
Yeah, they're truly one of the best, and like one of my favorite stories related to With the Punches is the formation of Thieves out of the ashes of the first band we started into like all the things they became as a band. I just think they wrote some of the coolest songs in the last few years. So anybody that's listening to this that is like looking for a new band that you may not have heard about, they're incredible. Thieves is the band, and they're from Texas. But
they did a split with one of my buddy's bands. Have you heard of the band Come Clean? Or Coming Clean?
Yeah. Yep. I heard about them just through that split.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Awesome. Yeah. So they got Billy and Chris and Nate, but Billy and Chris were in that band with me a long time ago when I first got my shot singing. So it just kind of is a small world.
Is there recordings out there?
Oh yeah, that's out there too. I'll send them to you. You might like it. It's pretty good.
Oh, that's dope. I definitely want to hear like an early Jesse.
It's interesting because we were kind of like, at the time, I guess I won't even say this. I'm going to say it anyway, but I think it was kind of like more melodic, hardcore screamo on the fringe of, I guess you'd call that band. Okay. So a little bit of a stretch for anything I did vocally with Punches, I would say, but yeah, I'll send it to you. It's pretty interesting.
Dude, I'm stoked. Also, Dustin, you were in a band called Measured in Gray. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when Jesse was in Dead Ahead, they had another guitar player in the band named John Keane, and John was the singer of Measured in Gray. And so Jesse and I lived in Austin, Texas, and he had joined Tomorrow's Too Late, and they didn't need a third guitar player, which broke my heart. So after a while, like things down there were just like, I'd been there a few years and kind of started missing home. So I moved back to New York, and a mutual friend of mine and Jesse's hit me up one day and was like, hey, do you want to play in a band? And I was like, yes, very much so. That would be great. And she was like, why? I know these guys, and they're looking for a guitar player. It's like a straight ahead punk band. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So she like put me in contact with them, call back and forth. And I think they were like, can you learn a couple of like Misfits songs and like a Jawbreaker tune? And I was like, yes. So went and joined that band, like got the gig that night, and for a few years got to play in this band, which was like some of my favorite songs I've ever been a part of. I just think that John and Ian, his brother, who's the other guitar player, and our bass player Sean were like some of the best songwriters, and it was just like so fun. And so I did that for a couple years. Jesse moved back a year later from Texas. He also moved back to New York, and he would just like come out to gigs, and he liked the band as well.
I love that band. That was like my band. I was so obsessed with that band. I followed them everywhere they went. Their records are on Spotify now too. If you just went up, if you get a chance to check those out, they're a great band.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. And it was just like way more straight ahead punk rock than anything I'd really ever done before. But it was just a blast. Like we would Sean, the bass player, he was the original bassist for Cooter, the band that Jesse mentioned, but then also he had like toured with and like been a member of Stretch Armstrong for a few years. So we get to like play shows with Stretch Armstrong. We played shows with the Loved Ones, who like is a huge band for me. That's actually how like we ended up meeting Transit, was because we played a show with Transit, Daggermouth.
Fuck yeah.
Like we got to play with like so many cool bands. And that was, before we had an opportunity to start with the Punches.
Daggermouth's the fucking shit. I think I saw you post something about, is there a new band from like members of Daggermouth now?
Yeah. Kenny from Daggermouth is in a band called Rest Easy, and it's him and I think the drummer of Shook Ones, which is a hardcore band I adore. And their new record just rules. It's 4 songs and it's perfect.
Yeah, it's super good.
I want to check that shit out.
Yeah, you'll like it.
Absolutely.
Was there any other with the Punches bands that like the listeners might want to check out?
Nope, I don't think so. That was pretty much it.
Oh, sick.
Even if there were, we're never talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it really was like Jesse started singing "Tomorrow's Too Late," and I played Emotion in Gray, and that was kind of it. I really I was into like older punk bands. Like growing up, I loved Bad Religion, I loved Descendants, and like early Green Day stuff. And then I kind of checked out of punk rock, and then Jesse and I became friends like 03, 02, and he was like, "Oh, you like punk rock?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love punk rock." And he's like, "Cool." He's like, "You like H2O?" And I was like, "Never heard of them. Are they new?" he's like, "No, they've been around for a while, man." And I was like, "I don't know." And so a lot of the bands that I love now and are like foundational for me, I didn't come across until I was like 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys have these punk backgrounds. When does it turn into like, let's make some pop punk type of shit?
I mean, I always liked like Newfound Glory.
I was going to say
that was like a band that I knew before you and I were hanging out. But but I mean, I think that was always just part of it. There wasn't so much division in like the subgenres of stuff. It was just like, it's punk rock.
It's fast.
It's hate.
Yeah,
Hatebreed.
exactly.
Oh, it's punk rock. Like,
yeah, it was kind of all the same. I think we didn't really draw the line there of what was, where those things differentiate. We were pretty heavily influenced too with stuff that was more in the definition of like punk hardcore, I guess you'd say, while you wouldn't hear it in our sound per se. That was a lot of what we were drawing influence from at the time of writing the first couple songs.
Cool. So let's talk about when you guys first formed. So what was the original lineup? How did you guys come together?
Sure. So Dustin and I started writing the songs, just the two of us, no bandmates, at the place he was living, like a small little basement apartment. We just started writing the first couple of songs. At that time, the idea was just, all right, we got to get the word out that we want to start a band, and we can tell people reference the sound, but we don't have a band to show demos for yet. So we just kind of started putting the word out online, social media. When we eventually connected to after a bunch of auditions with folks that either didn't work out or just didn't have the right chemistry, we end up meeting Shane, who is the drummer that worked with us continuously. He had a period where he was out of the mix for a bit, but is the drummer of the band, and he's in New Jersey, always was. we were just reaching anybody in the Northeast that wanted to take it seriously. We could find people who could play that just didn't want to, be about it, or we could find people that were just not up to par, but really were passionate. So, we sifted through. We jammed with Shane the first time. It was an instant fit. So we had a drummer. He said, I know another guitar player, this dude that I played music with, and I think you guys will like him. He loves the same music. He brings Joe, and Joe's a guitar player. So really after that, it was just plugging in a bass player, which we did. And that lineup carried on for a little while from Keep It Going record first, and then on into the next EP. So we started that lineup just kind of by pounding the pavement, trying to find people that wanted to make the music we wanted to make. And we got fortunate when we met Shane, because he's an incredible drummer and such a good guy. So we got pretty lucky with that one. So.
And what about the name? Because I know a lot of punk or pop punk bands, they take from like songs like All Time Low, they're taken from Newfound Glory. Was it from 4 Year Strong?
Nope. Nothing to do with 4 Year Strong. They and no dig on them either, because we just weren't aware of that tune at the time of naming the band. What we were listening to was a straight edge hardcore band, Carry On, and Dustin gets full credit for that. I was leafing through records that he had in the basement and just like kind of filing through songs, some of them which I didn't even know that well. I knew that band and a few others, but we kind of were like just really held on to that concept through that band. And so that band gets the credit for where we got our name from, Carry On, straight edge hardcore band.
That's sick. Was there any other names that like almost became With the Punches?
I can't think of, Dustin, do you know any? Because I couldn't think of any.
So I remember very clearly like sitting in the back of your car, and you, me, and Matt Palmer, and we were just talking about it because like we weren't, just nobody was really sure about the name. It's like like we knew we wanted like a short name, like a kind of 3-word. We kind of figured that part out, and we were like, yo, what about like, we were listening to Seosin, and I think Palmer was like, yo, what about Step It Up? Because there's that part in
man, I do remember him saying that now, and I'm really glad that never happened.
I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Man, I'm not saying we got the best band name in the world, but that would have been way worse.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like the one that sticks out is Step It Up.
Okay. Yeah, that's Palmer's idea. That's neither of us would have okayed that idea.
I feel like he's the one that came up with the name Keep It Going for the first EP.
I don't think he gets the credit, but it's possible. He might say he did.
He did. I don't know. Bass on it. So I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and the Roots, like the hip hop band. So Jesse and I, like growing up in Newburgh, both love hip hop, and there's a song called Web that Jesse and I listened to a bunch. At the end, he's like, keep it going, keep the beat going.
Oh.
And I think it might have come out of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that. That's the only thing that we were talking about before this. Like, do you remember? Because I think that's the origin for it. But.
All right, guys. So I just want to talk a little bit about something about the shift in the music scene, and I think a lot of people during this era saw this happen. We had like this emo era, but then it slowly started to transition to a second wave of pop punk, and like the first wave I started seeing was kind of like this like almost like easy core, like bands that are trying to sound like Newfound Glory. So you have like the 4 Year Strong, Set Your Goals type of bands, like a lot of gang vocals type of shit. And I would even consider you guys a part of that. And then it phased its way into like, once Man Overboard dropped that Love Your Friends Die Laughing with the Defend Pop Punk, it was just like, yo, pop punk is the wave right now. I was wondering if you guys have any memories of like seeing that transition. Am I right about that? Was that a thing that happened?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, like 05, there's like the Fireworks demo comes out, Like Set Your Goals starting to pick up some heat. Daggermouth is like puts out Stallone, that first record. And then like, I don't know, like that time there was just so much happening, because at the same time, like, Hit the Lights is happening. All Time Low was like the little kid brother band of Hit the Lights when they started, like, at least, looking at it. So I don't know, it always just seemed like there was a lot going on. I don't remember where, like, I remember Man O kind of always being around, and like all those bands, like the like South Jersey, Philly bands.
Yeah, like you guys used to tour with I Call Fives.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of like that wave of bands.
Yeah. So like, I mean, we were always just kind of like the B market bands, you know what I mean? Like us and I Call and Caradale and Handguns, Thieves. Like we were just the did everything ourselves bands. We didn't have managers. We didn't have booking agents. So yeah, I don't remember any point where like that became like a bigger thing. It was just kind of always there.
No, it's crazy because I used to think of them as, because I remember catching all those bands like in like churches, like VFW halls and stuff, like real DIY, but then like it reached a point where just like Neck Deep is on Hopeless Records and like opening for All Time Low, and at the time All Time Low is like the biggest band, so it's insane.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and all those bands like I think Neck Deep did like a run with Blink-182. Like,
oh yeah, and Lil Wayne.
Yeah, like it's wild.
I think that I feel like that wave, as you'd say, like that wave of bands for sure had like a definitive shape for a good period of time. There were a lot of bands that were like doing the pop punk thing and inspired by maybe heavier music, maybe not. And it seemed like so many of the borders were knocked down at that point. We were playing shows with pop bands and hardcore bands from the start of our band. It was always just like what I knew of local shows, like in the area in the Hudson Valley where I went, and Dustin too, like going to shows. A lot of the bills were mixed with like pop bands and harder bands. And there just wasn't really much need for a division there, or at least not the way I saw it. So I think that was a common thread for, at least for our band, and the perspective we gained about what was happening in music was that it was all good, and there was a chance for pretty much any of our bands to get to play on the next plateau, like the next big stage with a bigger band, just by going out and playing really hard every night and being genuine and connecting with an audience, which is what we learned along the way. And I feel like we just met more and more bands in different genres who helped teach us how to do it. So.
Was there a band in particular that like was a mentor for you guys?
I would say a big, it feels like to me anyway, a teaching moment for us was when we went to Japan the first time. As an experience, obviously it was monumental, and did so much for our band in terms of like who we are as individuals, our purpose with our writing after going there. All things were influenced by that first trip, and Mayday Parade was the headliner on that tour, and they're between the band individually, how they operated, their relationship with their team, which was small in Japan. It wasn't like a huge touring operation with 20 people. It was the band plus one, and they were just such a tight unit, and they worked so well together. They were unbelievably well rehearsed for shows. They made the most out of sound check opportunities. And I feel like they did so much professionally as a band that was impactful. And again, they were a big pop band, but as the pop punk band playing a 30-minute set before them, we were constantly just finishing our show and then just waiting in the wings to watch them play. And we gleaned so much from hanging out with them and talking to them, but also we loved those pop songs and loved watching them play them. And I think that's maybe what made us the band we are, and the associations, the bands that we think of the most highly, a lot of them are not like whoever the cool pop punk band is that you might think we would say. Like, we don't have a lot of connectivity with some of those bands, but man, the bands we did meet, and I would say like Mayday Parade was one of the big like impact bands for us for touring anyway. I'd put them as like that's the name of one of the bands that I really felt impressed by. And then you know, musically too, there were some bands that we got to share the stage with that I think helped progress our sound. Like, I think Dustin and I were talking about this earlier, but a band that comes to mind first and foremost is Fireworks, as a band that made a pop punk EP that was fast, and obviously they liked the same bands that we talked about in that, you know, in early influence of pop punk, but they navigated their career, and every record seemed to just find a way to refine their sound. They never pivoted to a point where someone would say that's not Fireworks, or like they're trying to be a different band, which was a criticism that other bands got. They never got that because they carried so much of the energy and the intensity of that first wave of their band into these songs that were just dramatic and engaging and incredibly well written. And so Fireworks to me was a band that had a huge impact. I know for Dustin and I personally, like, would say that band draws a strong memory for how and why we wrote the music we did, why we continued on as we did. I think Seams and Stitches as a record probably would never sound the way it did if not for learning about the dynamics we did from bands like Fireworks.
That's crazy. And Dustin, you said that their first EP came out in 2005. I didn't realize that, but it sounded like they were in the game for a while.
Yeah, not the EP. I think their first demo. So I have a bunch of friends in Chicago, and they, like, you know, through associations, when they put out this demo called the Can't Hardly Wait demo, and all the songs are like quotes from the movie Can't Hardly Wait, and like all the song titles, and I remember hearing it, just being like, yo, this band is awesome, and like Jesse and I would listen to it and just being like, yo, this rules. And then I think it was 08, 09 when All I Have to Offer Is My Own Confusion came out. Probably 09. But like, so there's the We Are Everywhere EP is like the EP in between there. And they were just like, you listen to the Can't Hardly Wait demo, and it's some of the same songs that are on We Are Everywhere. And then there's Adventure, Robbery, and Nostalgia, which like leads into All I Have to Offer Is My Own Confusion. And every time they put something out, it's just like, we're just getting a little more to where like those last songs that you ever heard, you know, whether it's like the songs on O Common Life or like the Demi-Toss stuff that they've released since, it's like you can just see that progression of like, oh, this is always where they were heading. Like, this is always where it was going to go. And they were just such a cool band. The first time I ever, like, as someone who loved that band, I never got to see them until our first show was with them at Hit the Lights.
And so that's sick.
Yeah.
What a banger first show.
Dude, Jeff Menig put on the best shows in Poughkeepsie's. But like, the first time I ever saw their guitar player played did a tour with H2O, and they came through Poughkeepsie, and I remember like him coming on stage and looking at Jesse and going like, is that the little dude from Fireworks? And sure enough, that's exactly who it was.
Yo, that's crazy. The shit comes full circle.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yo, wait, question though, because I saw Fireworks in like 2010 when they came to Atlantic City with Newfound Glory, and I don't know if I'm gonna scrap this part or not, but the bassist it looked like his hand was like kind of a nub, and I just fixated on him the whole time, just wondering how he was playing his bass parts. What was up with that?
Yeah,
Kyle was born with like his hand is, you know,
only partially formed.
Yeah, that was the word.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he has like a thumb.
And does he put a pick on it or something?
No, it's just he just plays.
He just plays with it, like
he picks it.
Yeah,
with the edge of his thumb.
That's so badass.
Yeah, if you watch videos of him doing it, it's pretty wild. He's great bass player too.
For sure.
Let's keep it going, literally, because right now we're gonna get into you guys' first EP. Keep It Going. Where does the name Keep It Going come from? Because to me, it sounds like let's keep music going. Like let's try this new band and put out an EP. Was that the idea?
Yeah, I'll take that. I like that. Yeah, no, so Dustin and I were talking earlier about this, that basically we were listening to a lot of music. The title itself, Keep It Going, was something that we carried like a positive force behind. We, pulled the name, for like we were saying, from a hip hop record reference. But really it was largely about a positive sense of like actually showing up and doing a thing you talked about doing. Which Keep It Going was. It was like Dustin and I wanted to start a band where we didn't just rehearse and play bars. We didn't have any interest in doing that kind of music. That wasn't part of the game plan. What we would do was write songs, record them, and then play shows like as fast as we could, everywhere we could, and as soon as possible get on the road. And on the road meant like maybe we can just book a weekend of shows this month, and then next month we'll get 2 weekends of shows. And if we trade shows with this band, so we had this like framework for what the band would be before we ever had a record. So Keep It Going was like, all right, chips on the table. We're a band now. We're going out. These are the songs we play live. People online can check out the band and get an idea of what we sound like, but we hope they just come watch us live, because that's what we want to leave with people, is a band that like, we play our hearts out every night, 5 people or 5,000. It's the same everything we got kind of concept. So Keep It Going, the songs, everything down the list. Like we were goofy about titling songs and it's like written all over it. When you read it, it's so funny. Like there's so little where I could say like, oh yeah, it was a deeply philosophical meaning, when we called that song that. It really wasn't in so many instances. We were just having fun with the concept. With the Punches, always write songs. They have working titles all the way up until we send the record off for recording. And then it's like, plug in some stuff that Dustin and I think is relevant or funny. And so every song title on every one of the records, relevant or funny. And not neither like predictably, but just a little bit of both.
So was there any inside jokes for any of the names of the songs on this record?
All of them. I think we tried to stop doing that afterwards because we realized it wasn't funny for everyone else and kind of like exclusionary for a band that wanted everybody to get into it. They'd be like, why is that the song? It doesn't make any sense.
Let's get a little something.
Yeah.
Well, like, so Don't Catch a Brick is like the line from the last song on Kanye West's College Dropout record. He's talking about like getting his record deal, and Dame Dash from Rockefeller Records is like, catching a brick. You don't want to catch a brick, don't catch a brick. And Jesse and I just liked that phrase.
Oh, that's sick.
Yep. So yeah, that, and like, everything else down the line, like, Burn at Both Ends is like probably the song, well, it is the song that we carried through our entire career, playing pretty heavily. A lot of folks, it's the song that they know the band by or most recognizable. And that was, a song written out of frustration and the idea of genuinely like absolving all resources to try and find, whether it be love or happiness or ultimately just like the acceptance of oneself, which is always what happens with the Punches songs. It's like 95% internal struggle, all the things, all the perspectives. Like the basis for songwriting in this band has always been about the challenges within and overcoming. And so I feel like each of the songs carries that weight. Even the ones with the goofy song titles, it may be like more focused on like, okay, for example, like Slizzard Crossing, You're Doing It Wrong. Totally just like goofy, just a very like, again, like slop together way of saying like, oh man, like these girls are just like every other girl. Like this is just the situation that's just like every other thing. And I feel it coming along, but like I kind of can't stop myself from this feeling of like, in general, I just wish there was something different, and all these things are the same. So yeah, like again, perspective and like inside joking for name titles. So especially on the first EP, there's a whole lot of that, and then we got away from it as you get into the next EP and the full length. We started writing slightly more meaningful topics for subtitles.
Cool. As far as recording this record, where'd you guys go?
Oh, so we recorded Keep It Going with a very good friend of ours, Seamus McCabe. He's an engineer, still records in the area. He's located in Beacon right now. He and my friend Tom Simmons, also another great like kind of music whiz. I can't even tell you how far back my connection with Tom goes. We were like young teenagers playing music together a long time ago. And so Tom helped engineer and really like kind of oversee on the record, along with our friend Matt Palmer, who was basically just like, I will help you guys push this band. I love the idea. I love you guys, and I want to see this thing succeed. I don't need to be a manager per se, but like I'll be the dude that helps you keep it moving forward. So
keep it going.
Almost said it.
Anyway, yeah. So so Matt was an integral piece in the recording. So that happened all at that studio. Finished those songs and then send it off. And yeah, we were so proud, and still, you know, can look back favorably on what we did with that record. And yeah, Keep It Going was a pretty fun first step into what this band would become.
Was there any good memories in the studio recording that album, or was there any like studio magic that happened to your songs that like you didn't expect to happen?
Dustin can share this story for sure.
Okay, so we're playing shows, and I guess yeah. So we play.
This is a long-standing injury.
We play our second with the Punches show, which is with A Loss for Words and I Am the Avalanche, as it happens. And before the show, we're like screwing around, like playing kickball in the parking lot or dodgeball. And I have a long-standing knee injury, and I like
shredded it.
Yeah, just destroyed my knee. And the next day, it was about the size of a grapefruit. So we're in the studio the next day, and we're like working on the record, working on songs, and Jesse like slaps me on the knee to get my attention, or he's excited about something. And I was just like in agony. And so the deal was that because he had done that foolishly, I got to gorilla punch him in the chest, which is when you take both hands like this, like you're swinging a baseball bat, and you punch someone sideways.
Yeah.
So we knew it was coming, and so we like laid down like foam. I think there was like isolation foam all over the place, like laying around. And I swung back and cracked my best friend in the chest as hard as I possibly could.
I had to sing after this, of course. So it was just like a really good time to like take like a huge punch to the chest. Yeah, but anyway, so I guess it would be fitting for the band, but yeah.
I wish someone hit record so you could start the album off with just it gets hit in the chest.
The thud, yeah, exactly.
You throwing up.
It would have been, that would have been very fitting for the time. But yeah, it's funny that Dustin mentioned that, because that's what I thought of as well. Still feel a little bit
but
in here.
You know, like so much of that, all that time in the studio, like we really didn't know Joe or Shane that well yet.
Mm-hmm.
We were like very much getting to know each other, like in the right, because Jesse and I had written a couple of the songs prior to like Joe joining the band. He was a little bit reluctant. He had like been in bands for a long time, and he was just like, nah, like I'm trying to be a grown up now. And we're like, nah, come on, it's gonna be fun. And so when he joined, he brought this like, he's just a incredible guitar player, an incredible musician. He understands music in a really like natural and prodigious kind of way. So we're like spending time in the studio. We're working on these songs that some we've written with Joe, and some we've written before he joined the band. And he's like adding parts in, coming up with cool stuff to do. And I just remember like sitting around talking about like we just want to be the band that everyone stage dives to. We just want to be Bane, but like pop punk. We just want to do the things that like all these bands that we love so much did for us, and we want to have that effect on people. So that was just such a cool time. And again, also like, I didn't know Seamus at all before we went to the studio. I knew Matt Palmer a little bit. He had sang in a band called Faster Than Fashion. And it was just such a cool time. And like Katona is where the studio is. And it's like half hour from Newburgh. So Jesse and I would like drive down every night, and like those car rides, just like goofing around, listening to music and talking about what we were about to do was awesome.
Hell yeah. No, that's awesome to hear. So as far as the Keep It Going era and touring this record, were there any specific memories of just that cycle playing those shows?
Yeah, I mean, so when we put out Keep It Going, like we really hadn't done like anything outside of like our area. Mm-hmm. And so we get our first like away shows. We go to Chicago with a band called, I almost hit the lights.
Honor Bright.
Honor Bright, thank you. This band Honor Bright we had played with in New York calls us and asks us to drive to Chicago to play a show with them in like the middle of the week. So we do that.
Just a one-off?
Yeah, that was where we were at as a band. If the phone rang, we were like, wait, where do you want us to play? Yeah,
we'll be right there.
Did you guys have the bus at this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
For a short time after that, we had the bus too, yeah.
Well, and then we book our first like real tours with a band called Caradale from Alabama, who we had never met, and we had just kind of interacted with over the internet. And they're like, yo, like, we like your band. You guys should come down and do this tour. So we like make our way to Florida in this short school bus that Jesse and I had bought with the money from our record release show, because Jesse and I worked together at like a salvage auto auction.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's how we got the school bus.
Yeah.
It just showed up one day on like a donation fleet from a school where like they retired their fleet of buses. And so we got to buy one that had like no mileage for $900.
Oh, that's legit. And is it true that it was called Bussa Rhymes?
Yes. yeah.
Again, with the punches, the kings of like stupid names.
Stupid inside jokes, which later on we'd be like, man, why didn't we come up with a better name? People would have been more entertained. But yeah, no, that was the name for the band. Yeah, and we ended up taking out some of the seats and putting futon in it so that like there was more comfortable sitting. And yeah, we were trying to make the most out of having a $900 school bus to drive around the country. Like we did the best we could with it. It died triumphantly in Florida.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's so far away from Newburgh.
Oh my God. If you only knew, honestly, Mikey, like I tell you, like, you've interviewed bands, you know, everybody's got some horror story from the road. We all love the road, but at some point you end up like upside down on the road. Like you have no money. You have all the luck in the world is against you. You have nothing going for you. The van breaks down. You know, like somebody's girlfriend breaks up with them at the same time. It's like everything just starts to really come to a crumbling point. But yeah, so our bus dies in Florida, and we scrape together all of the money we can muster between like each of the band members and some family money that people were sending to us. Anyway, so we save up the money we have to buy a replacement van, and we find one on Craigslist that like looks old, but the guy's like, it's brand new. It's got like new motor in it. Everything's going to be in good shape. I'll bring it over to you. You guys just pay me when I bring it over. So sure enough, a van shows up in our driveway. It's running at the time. We're like, oh, cool. We got a van. We're going to do the rest of the tour. Everything's good. Give the guy the money, swap out, get the plates. Everything's legit. We're in the van driving like, I don't know, 3 hours maybe? Maybe we got 3 hours out.
We had just crossed into Georgia.
Yeah, so I think we had a couple hours of driving out of Florida, and the new van dies. Like
No.
the engine ceases, not like blown a tire or like, you know, a door handle fall. Like this was vehicle number 2, DOA. Like there's no bringing it back. You take all of your stuff out of it and now you have nowhere.
You got straight up scammed.
Dude, so bad. Yeah, we really did get like worked so hard, and none of us were mechanics, so we did the best we could to like try to make a good decision, and we just totally lost it. So the end result is that we pack up all of our belongings and put it in a U-Haul box truck and take the box truck all the way back to New York with like 2 or 3 of us illegally riding in the back of the box truck because you're not supposed to be in there when he's driving.
Yeah.
We hung out back there.
I just interviewed a band, and they said that their bus broke down the day before Warped Tour, and they needed to. They rented some kind of van from Home Depot, and Home Depot after a week were like, "Yo, we need our van back."
We need that van, yeah.
They just dropped it off at another Home Depot and rented another van.
Yes.
You got to get crafty.
That's
like,
awesome.
See, I wish we had known that move. We probably would have tried it. We had bad luck with vans during that time.
Oh man, that was brutal. And like, it wasn't the van that we got. The replacement wasn't even comfortable. It was like there were, you know, like the 2.
We went to a junkyard to get the bench seat that we sat in. I just want to point out that there was no seat in the back, and we went to a junkyard, picked a seat, installed it in the van, and that was the bench seat in the back for
my God.
5 people. Yeah.
Yeah. So
We were a mess.
the gear was literally like you had the bench seat which faced the rear, and then the gear started about 1.5 feet, 2 feet from the end of the bench seat. So like you're not stretching out your legs, and you have 3 people on it, and it's not wide enough for 3 people. So like somebody was sitting on a spare tire.
Yeah. Anyway, so you'd say that we didn't have the best of luck with vehicles.
that's
Punches
really
was not a band that was good with vehicles. Then we did eventually upgrade. We got a nice van after all things said and done. So I guess if we were to try and not make this like the saga of with Punches touring, that was a big part of our first like attempt at touring, was breaking down, not being able to finish a tour. Then we did finally get to go all the way out to the West Coast and really start to like break into new markets, and we were very fortunate that it stayed the course then.
You know the saying, smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. So, you know,
Sure.
You guys got through the bullshit, and,
Yes.
you know,
I like that.
We're entering the it's not the end of the world era. So I found on your guys' Tumblr, it said that bad decisions, member changes, scumbag booking agents, and a handful of bullshit excuses brought us up to your 2011 release, It's Not the End of the World. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure.
So which
yeah.
part? What were the
All of it.
decisions?
We had a member in the band who was not well on many fronts, and it was time for him to not be a piece of the band anymore based on decisions he made, and that was a big challenge for us.
What, just trying to kick him out of the band?
that was a tough time. I guess I should say I'm gonna back out of this. I'll let Dustin take this one.
So we had, there was just some like attitudes and that were becoming an issue, and so much so that at the same time, like Joe and Shane both leave with the Punches. They make the record, and Joe and Shane are both like, "Yo, we love you guys. We can't keep doing this." Joe was at that time was really like trying to get his like adult life together.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe leaves, and that's hard. Shane leaves, and Shane is like, as far as the band goes, especially at that time, it's me, Jesse, and Shane. And our bass player at the time is just like the wrongest attitude, the guy you don't want to be around. But we don't really know what to do about it yet. So that's that part. Scumbag booking agents, we book a tour to the West Coast. We get as far as Chicago, and Shane starts calling. This is after Shane comes back to With the Punches, and we find Vinnie at that time, which is awesome. Vinnie joins the band right before the release of It's Not the End of the World.
Cool.
And Vinnie's still our guitar player, amazing musician. But we booked this tour to the West Coast around that time, and like stuff starts to fall apart. And, we're trying to figure stuff out, and yeah, it's like a really weird transitional time in the band, trying to figure out like how to go from the 5 people that we've been to this new thing, and again, like with all this attitude stuff happening. And so yeah, there's just a lot personally going on. Also, we're all getting older. Like I turned 30 that year.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what year was this?
This is 2011. I'm turbo old.
Okay.
So
40's the new 30. It's
Yeah.
I turned 30
not.
this year, and I'm pretending I'm 20. So
Yeah, that's it.
And that's the thing. At like 30, I still felt like I was 20. I still felt like I could do anything. I was still angry all the time. Like,
wait, I'm gonna say something real quick.
yeah.
I love to hear that when second EP with the Punches. This is for all my people that are turning 30 right now. You can still make music, you can still tour, and no shame for it. And you can still play pop punk.
That's true. I appreciate that. I like the energy about that. I think we were older than a lot of the other bands we played with at the time, but I think that was irrelevant information. Like we just were all about doing what we wanted to do, and we believed that there was a connectivity for the music we were making. It didn't matter our age at the time.
I was thinking about that too, because I feel like as far as like musicians go, I'd rather hear someone write lyrics from the perspective of having more life experience kind of than, you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of pop punk bands, if you go back on their lyrics, they're a little cringy because, they're,
Yeah,
I don't know. They're
when you're
also-
15, 16 writing some of those songs, like it is really hard. We were talking about this earlier. It's like it's hard to connect later on and still be singing those songs. For us, like at least I would say, like I don't have a problem listening or singing a lot of the older tunes that we wrote because I was already at a vantage point of like some degree of maturity at play. So
Sure. That makes sense.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, so was it around this record when you guys got approached by, was it Doghouse Records?
Nope, not for. So It's Not the End of the World was still self-released. We
Okay.
didn't
Still
work with a label for
DIY.
that one. Still DIY, still doing it ourselves, still booking our shows. We were really trying to do the most we could with it. At this point, Marky was pushing Glamour Kills in a direction that was like so heavily involved with the bands, and I think you saw the same thing happening. That really was all about the apparel brand was held up by the musicians.
Yeah.
The bands that were on the roster, what defined what GK became. And again, Mark and I had a lot of conversations about music. He loved what we were doing with the Punches, and before we went into the studio for It's Not the End of the World, he's like, I want to put this out. Like, I want to find a way to be a part of the release of this album. I don't know how I'm going to do it or what, but I just want to help you guys make this record. Whatever it is I can do, if you can come to me and ask, I can try to, pull the strings to make it happen for you. And true to his word, Marky definitely helped us out at quite a few points in the band's career. So
was he kind of like the label for you guys?
in a way, like if we had a label, if there was a label on the release of that record, it would have been Mark's thing. And really, it was just kind of not the best timing for him to launch an imprint for the label. But right in the seasons and the years to come, you probably saw the GK roster shifted to a lot of bands like ours, like more of a pop punk engaged audience. And I feel like one of our like very good friends and close piece of With the Punches, Kyle Roger, who was doing marketing for GK at the time.
Yeah.
He and I built that tour roster that became like the first like really pop punk GK tour, when it was like,
Who was on the lineup?
Story So Far, Transit, A Lost for Words. It was like all bands, I know one of yours, it was all bands at that time that were kind of peers of ours and a good fit for transitioning GK into like a new front. And then you saw so much more of that involvement. And I know Marky had just a great ear for music. So we were thankful that he was interested in helping us out. And was kind of one of the catalysts for Something in the World was Mark, kind of back on what we were doing too. We made the record. We just put out a decent amount of copies and hit the road again. That was pretty much it. It was just time to go back out on the road. And at the same time, we had gotten interest internationally. So there were some plans that were in play. As soon as that record had come out, we had plans to put it in other markets too. So.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because I saw that you guys had a special release for Japan. It was like your first 2 EPs, but like sold together. And
yeah,
I was just like, no record label. Like, where's the distributor?
Like Japan, right? Crazy. I feel like that's for our band as a whole. And I alluded to this earlier in the discussion, but our relationship in Japan with our friend Masa is what launched everything we did there.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about Glamour Kills. I just think it's crazy because I screenshotted I went through MySpace archives and I found the old GK MySpace, and I screenshotted, sent it to Marky, and he was like, you know what? I think I sponsored every single band during that time.
Yep.
It's insane. And
it's
then
true.
When the pop, what I was talking about before, how like there was the shift from like the emo bands to the pop punk bands, I feel like aesthetically Marky changed from like the neon colors to like I don't know if you guys remember the CDR shirts, the Create, Destroy, and Build shirts.
Yep.
And then that's when like the poster boys were like Real Friends and shit like that. That's when I used to work for GK, and that was just like a special like time for me.
Totally.
Yeah, dude. You worked I didn't know you worked for GK.
It was like a summer internship.
Oh,
And
cool.
I actually got to work under Kyle.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
The best.
Kyle's the best. Yeah. That was a good time, man. I feel like Mark progressed the brand really naturally in that period, and I think he would agree. The bands that he was listening to and that were happening at that time definitely helped shape the sound and the style. So.
Yeah, I mean, the fashion goes with the music. Like, I know, like, that stuff, like, it's all about the music, but, like, you know, having a little drip never hurt anyone.
It's facts.
So where are we at now? What about the GK holiday show?
Cool.
He did that every year. I mean, working for American Icon and stuff like that, like that was probably like a big thing for everyone there.
Yeah, totally. The GK shows, Marky and Jeff Menig get, equal billing on those because Jeff did so much to build the relationships with those bands. He booked them all year round. So I think when it was time for the final lineups of each holiday fest to get built, it was like not only Mark's input from the bands he was working with, but also Jeff knowing the local market so well, what bands were working hard locally, and then also what bands were on the national or regional level that were touring that would help make the shows really big. So I think when you look at the full lineups of those shows, they're stacked because you've got the bigger touring acts that were kind of maybe drawing some extra new attention, but the bill was always full of bands that were like hitting that market hard and always knew how to bring kids out to Poughkeepsie. So
what bands like from that lineup do you feel like were like kind of like the front runners, like that everyone would go absolutely bonkers for?
What's the lineup for 2012? Were we talking about this? I don't remember which bands that was.
So 2012, let's see. That would have been like a Lost Words, Transit. I imagine the Wonder Years would have been on at least one of them.
Yeah. And is that the year that what we did Boston and New York back to back? That was that? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. The Boston show was insane. That was one of the craziest shows we ever played, period, because it was at the House of Blues.
Wait, was this a whole tour?
So at that time, and I'm either saying this is 2012 or it's a different year, and you have to check the facts, but Yes, there was the traditional Poughkeepsie GK holiday, but there was also a Boston show at House of Blues, and the Wonder Years definitely headlined that one. And there were a lot of bands on it. We were one of the bands fortunate enough to get to play before them, and that was a huge show. It was sold out at House of Blues, and that was crazy. It was right across the street from Fenway Park. So, like, as a Yankee fan,
you're like, fuck you guys.
Yes, exactly. There was a whole lot of that. Yeah, exactly.
No, I grew up with a bunch of Yankee fans. I knew the vibes.
So you know the deal, yeah. And it was always that way. I was always wearing a Yankee hat playing in Boston, just because that's just the way it is.
So,
oh, man.
I just pulled up the flyer. So,
Okay.
The Boston show, A Lost for Words and Transit headline. And then it was Hit the Lights, Us, State Champs, Dangerous Summer, Brian Marquis, Kid Jerusalem. Then the Poughkeepsie show was Matchbook Romance and Anna Divine. And then A Lost for Words, Hit the Lights, Us, State Champs, Dangerous Summer, Young Statues, Class of '92.
Oh, Maddie's other thing.
Maddie's other thing.
Yeah, so okay, now I remember that show a little bit more clearly with the lineup adjustment. Yeah, that was a really interesting time. Matchbook is another band that got really big in that area years before, even before we were doing our thing. They were probably like the bigger Poughkeepsie band, one of the bigger Poughkeepsie bands to come out at that time. But yeah, we were just fortunate to be a part of the mix. You know, there were so many bands that could have gotten a spot on that show in our place, and we just always felt like we were well taken care of in Poughkeepsie. We worked really hard in our area too, though. So to be fair, anytime we got to play Poughkeepsie, we were hustling, selling a lot of tickets, and putting the word out there. So
would people just naturally just come to your shows anyway, though, if you're playing a hometown gig?
After a while, yeah.
After a
by
while.
2012, 2013, yeah, we had like a pretty strong developed following. In the early days, man, we pounded for every one. It felt like, you know, we really did work hard to get small numbers of people to see us in every city, home included, and then it just kind of blossomed from there. So
sick. What about you guys went to the UK too? Any good memories from there?
I'm sorry.
He's got memories.
I'm leaving that one alone. If I'm being totally honest, and I can be, I guess, because it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy touring in the UK.
Why?
I can say this. I didn't enjoy it. I loved being in the band and being on tour. I loved every minute of it. There was just something about the collision of time that happened when we were in. It was like, and I don't mean this as a dig against those guys. If they were all standing in front of me, I would tell them the same thing. We put a lot of work into booking what was supposed to be the Me vs. Hero with Punches tour in the US, where like after we played in the UK, they were going to come over and play shows in the US. So like our team put a lot of work into building that up as a possibility. 2 weeks of shows up and down the West Coast. You know, we had all of our markets locked in, we're ready to go. I think for those guys, it was just maybe a difference of scene than we were used to. And I maybe had a different expectation when I got there, but it just felt like everything was last minute by the seat of our pants. Like we had done all of those Hard Knocks types of touring endeavors before. So when we were asked to go there and we're like seeing all the dates on all the venues show up, it looks like everything's good. We get there and no dig. We had a great time in many aspects. It was just a hard reality. There was a lot of loose ends on the development of that tour that just needed work. So,
are you talking about like knowing like your load-in times, the guaranteeing type shit?
Yeah, totally. And I'll say this as like a word to the wise to bands. Like, okay, let's say, you know, this new year and new perspective on live music. Like, if you're gonna make a commitment to do anything, show up to one gig, whatever it is, or one podcast, take the time. Go over the details of where you're supposed to be, what you're expected to do, and if you have other people in tow, like if you have people visiting your city to come do this thing, get everything in order for them to show up and have a great time. It's the courtesy, it's the right move.
I think so. That tour there was like, first we had never been to England, and the only time we'd ever gone, we'd flown over to do what's that festival? what is that festival?
Slam Dunk.
Slam Dunk. We've flown over to do Slam Dunk. We had been given the wrong kind of visas, and we had been immediately put back on a plane back to New York. So, the UK was tough from the jump. Also,
Flew
the
there,
UK,
back home.
got there, sat in the airport, and got interrogated for 8 hours, and then put on a plane back to New York. So the second time, we'd never been to the UK before. December in the UK, it is cold and it is wet everywhere. The showers in the UK don't work exactly the same as they do in the US, so hot water is like a luxury that you don't always get.
Wow.
And so, it felt very much like an early With the Punches tour where everything is DIY. We're staying at people's, but instead of staying at people's houses like we do in the States, because it's England, everything is smaller, we're staying at people's flats. And when you have between,
Wait, what's a flat?
just an apartment.
Like a studio apartment.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you're piling all the boys in with all the gear and shit.
Rough.
We stayed at one place, and it was us, me versus Hero, and Neck Deep, and we literally nuts to butt. We were everyone is just next to each other sleeping. If you had to get up and walk to the bathroom in the middle of the night, boy, you better reconsider. You're gonna step on somebody.
Yeah. Scary.
So that's happening. We have a bus driver who was thoroughly insane, and we'd ask him to stop. He was a nice guy. Mike loved him, but we'd ask him if we could stop at a Starbucks, and the dude would drive 30 minutes out of the way to go to a bus stop that he had been to 20 years prior and get a cold sandwich. It was
This is a terrible recommendation.
Dude,
there was a lot of that stuff, and I hope I didn't
Yeah.
come off like such a prima donna. I'm feeling bad. Like I said, I didn't have a good. I really do enjoy the people over there, and I had a great time in that regard. But what Dustin's getting at was all I really wanted to point to. There was a lot of stuff that we had high expectation.
Well, the thing is, you probably went through the ringer of doing things DIY to the point where you now have a certain standard of how you would do it, but now that it's in someone else's control, you're just I would have just booked the whole thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's all I can say about that.
Yeah.
And I love those guys. They're great people. That was a hard tour for us.
How was gigging with Neck Deep, though? Those guys are fucking awesome.
So that was their first show ever.
What?
That was their first tour. Their first live shows were with us.
Yeah.
And they were such the nicest dudes. They covered Daggermouth the first night.
Oh,
and I was
sick. Boys.
Yeah.
They're so good.
Yeah, they're great. And so in when we were at the gig, with the exception of the night that somebody stole Jesse's hat, that was one of the angriest I've ever seen you.
There was no reason for that.
Yeah, don't be stealing shit.
It was the Yankees hat, I bet, too.
It had to be. One of many, but I was not having.
Yeah, you were displeased. But yeah, I mean, so it was just, again, cold and wet for 2 weeks. After, we've now gone to Japan twice at this point. And so when we're in Japan, it's we're in buses, we're with Mayday Parade, and William Beckett from the Academy is, and all these
What
bands.
was he doing there?
He's on the tour.
He was on the tour.
Yeah, he was the first act on stage because
Was he?
acoustic. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, he was very good at it.
Sick.
And yeah, so we're having a blast, and then we get to the UK and it's cold. I think Shane booked the flights, so we flew into the wrong airport.
Yep, we all flew into different airports. They booked, the other band booked a hostel for us to stay in one night, but they booked it for that
wrong
date
year.
1 year ahead of it. So we showed up with all of our shit ready to get a nice night's rest. It didn't happen.
Who books a hostel a year ahead?
I don't know.
Just in general.
Yeah,
his name is Sam, and he's the singer of Me vs. Hero.
I love those guys. I sound like such a prima donna shitting all over them for that tour. They're honestly sweetheart guys, and it was a fun time in many ways. So I just say again the same thing I said before. The word to the wise, but it's touring is a major challenge. Playing shows, accommodating other bands is something that you do, and we took a lot of pride in the way that we put together shows for bands when they were coming to town for us. So that's all. I think that that's a cool thing about how we operate.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Do you guys want to get into the seams and stitches era?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So Dustin, I saw a post that you had about a little backstory behind this record, but you went on your first date with your now wife, showing her demos beforehand, being told that you were going to get sued with this record, and your label wasn't going to sign you over it. And Jesse, you had a really tough time writing the lyrics for this record. Just a lot going on with this one too. Like With the Punches has some lore. Can we dive into this?
Absolutely. So, December 2011. So I had already met who's my wife through playing shows. She booked us early on.
She was a promoter?
Yeah.
Nice.
In Central PA. So Jesse and I are going to go see American Nightmare because they're playing the reunion show. And Sarah hits me and is like, yo, do you want to go to Canada after the show for New Year's Eve? And I was like, I called Jesse. I was like, yo, is this a girl asking me on a week-long date? And Jesse's like, yeah, dude, go for it. So we get in the car and I have the rough demos from rehearsal of what would become Seams and Stitches, and I'm playing her. I was like, do you want to hear some demos? Do you want to hear some new songs? And she's like, yeah, okay, cool. And so that was
just testing the waters.
Yeah, it was cool to have that. Also, that same time, that band member who was becoming a pain at It's Not the End of the World, we're starting to get ready to write the record, and that dude just is has spiraled completely out of control. None of us know what to do. We finish up a tour, and at the end of the tour, Shane quits in the middle of the tour and says he'll finish the tour out, and then that's it. He's done. I also am yo, I'm not gonna do the band anymore. I think I'm out. Which for me,
you were gonna quit?
Yeah, I was done. I told
just
Jesse,
because this guy?
Yeah, because I was we're not gonna be able at the time our band was paying for the van, but the van was in his name. He's abusive on stage. He's as bad a thing as I can say about being in a band with a person. He's all those things. We get home.
Was it an ego thing though?
It's an ego thing and an inferiority complex thing and substance abuse thing. There's just a lot.
I think there's a lot of things that and I'm actually just going to insert and then step away, but I think there's a lot to be said for the patience that was shown to someone that was so far in a different direction in terms of how people are treated. Our band has stayed so close. The members that remain, myself, Dustin, Shane, Vinnie, we're all very close because of a common respect factor we have for each other. And Joe being one of the past members of the band, Mike, bass player of the band currently, we all have this respect factor for each other. And then there's degrees of just general behavior in life that's outside of admissible. And so, we're a band with standards. That's the way we've always been, and I'm proud of the way we operated after that. But to get to that point of severing that situation and then still writing a record in the face of whatever would happen in repercussion, that was not a simple time.
Do you guys mind talking about a specific spiral?
Sure.
I mean, there was so much of that happening. There were shows where our van would just disappear. We knew the dude had been drinking. There was we were getting stories about shit happened in his personal life, and people wanted to come at us about it. And so
yeah, I think that was basically I would say that in summation there was a lot that occurred in his personal life that just got way too close to the band and reflected a general sense that we just couldn't be a part of, and we couldn't tolerate it anymore. it was very freeing to be able to sever it and move on, but it was extremely challenging to get to that point, and then to just have the kind of determination to keep writing and to keep progressing on the concept as it was not easy. I'm so thankful for the support of the other guys in the band to help carry the weight of that. It was just a hard time. Take it very personally. We were a tight, a tight-knit crew, with that exception. And so once that was lifted, we got to kind of rebuild in a way that made the synergy for a great record. Frankly, like I'm so proud of that album, and what we did, and the music we made in spite of such hard times. That was, I without over dramatizing the situation, I get kind of overwhelmed by the ideas and the emotions that were surrounding making this record. As a person that's always struggled with a degree of imposter syndrome, I never have been able to accept anything I've ever done, regardless of commercial success or even reverberated energy. Like being in a room full of people who are moved by something you've done should be enough, but it was never enough. And that feeling has always been a challenge for me, both like on and off stage. And getting to write this record about those feelings, and like, will I ever actually learn how to accept the beauty in this world, or am I just gonna am I one day gonna look back and just be sad that I never could? That all this time will have passed and all these beautiful things will have occurred. I've met tremendous people. I'll have been inspired and made great things that really mattered, and they'll never matter to me enough. And that was a real fear. Seams and Stitches was about what kept it all together, and being able to join on a common union, and writing those songs with Dustin lyrically was just a bare and raw experience, to just sit down and try to fight through feelings of inadequacy that are just always kind of looming. So, it's a heavy record in a lot of ways. Emotionally, it carries a lot. I've been fixated on death at so many points in my life with people I've lost and continue to lose, that I truly believe writing songs about it has been the most effective way that I've been able to deal with tremendous grief. And I'm so thankful for the songs that I was able to write with this band in times when I just couldn't feel like I'd find a way around such leveling grief.
What song's most meaningful for you on this record?
So, as a whole, the album carries a lot of weight for me. Personally, I feel most in tune with the title track, Seams and Stitches, for reasons that were both like lyrically, but also musically, and I feel so proud of the way that tune came together, and it was something that almost wasn't on the album as it was, and then really all the pieces started coming together for what the song's framework was about, and the life that was looming always. And it was just, to me, was just such a large moment, and a huge defiance to everything that would hold me down. I truly believed that it was like an unchaining moment to write that song, to put those words into motion as they were. It struck me, and the song still does. I hear it now. It still gives me that same feeling. I'm overwhelmed by it emotionally. I truly do love that song, and it's meant so much to me, and I'm glad that other people have felt it.
What lyrics in particular on that song?
So there's a thing about the way a verse comes together that Dustin and I had rehearsed prior to recording, and in our natural back and forth, Dustin was like, I don't know if that all fits. Like, that rhythm is just it's kind of bizarre. Like, I just don't know if it's all gonna fit. And in my head, kind of saw the rough edges rounding out as I got to it, and it was still not certain in my head until I walked in the booth to record it. I was still just kind of like shaping it as I got to it. And so there's a line that's like, I feel my guts riding out and spilling on the floor. I've passed out enough lies as answers, so here's your bright caution sign. And it was kind of just like, for me, truly a time to accept how raw I felt and just what I wanted to do with that emotion. I wanted to be a beacon of something for other people. I wanted my pain to mean something to other people. So if I could turn it into something positive and build a monument, it would be helpful to others. There would be that light that says, don't give up yet. Like, don't choose now to give up on something that means so much to you. Don't think you don't have it in the moment when you got it all. And that's truly where we were at. We were at the pinnacle of performance in that band. We were never a better performing band than we were when we went in to record the record. The tour we did afterwards, when we truly like integrated those songs into our skill sets, we became the best band we were to that from the years prior.
Yeah, to add to that, like this record, well, first of all, this is your first full-length record, so there's that, but these songs are completely different than the stuff that you were doing before. I was wondering why the change of sound on this record.
Well, let me ask you, because, and I was dying to ask you a question anyway. So when you say that, as far as listening to the records, what do you feel like is different about listening to Seams and Stitches versus the other songs? I have some things in my head that I would say, but like, what is it about it that strikes it to you as different?
Well, first thing I noticed are the guitar tones sound amazing on it, and
so good.
And Dustin shreds all over. There's not a moment that he's not playing a lick. But I don't know. I got more of a like pop rock, like if I was to describe it, a fast pop rock vibe.
Okay, so you think like the genre kind of bended a little bit from what we...
It was like punk, fast punk to like, I don't know, like I told you already, like that sounds like a Valencia song in my opinion. Sure.
It's a ballad, right? It's a pretty far cry from some of like the straight fast 2-minute songs we played on the first EPs.
Yeah. Sure. But then you have like New York Minute, which is like, all right, let's go back and play some fast shit. Like
that's the thing. Like we're still that band. We're always going to be that band. The intensity is always at it. But I'm glad that it comes across that we were like continuing to evolve as a band. And
definitely.
I feel, you mentioned Dustin's playing, which I think is huge, both like in studio and in the writing process. He is the anchor and the orchestrator of the band, in so many ways. And so Vinnie, who just like, the guy can manipulate a guitar and make and write so much, but doesn't always know where the pieces fit. The team that we built at that time to make that record, I think was able to say, all right, cool, everything's on the table. Nothing's out. We're just going to absorb and write what feels good. There was no energy of anyone else like there was previously that was like, this isn't a punk rock song. That's not what the punch is. We're not doing that. Like, that doesn't feel like that. We shunned all of that type of concept. It was all like, want to write that song? I want to write that song too, and I want to write that song.
Yeah.
It's all good.
And also to note off of something Dustin was talking about earlier in the interview about how, like, looking at Fireworks as, like, from a songwriting perspective, how every album evolved and stuff like that. Like,
sure.
I feel like this was the evolving album in a sense of like, all right, we're going to take some old shit, but like, we're going to like, I don't know, we're going to write songs with like really good choruses and I don't know, like just very stronger songwriting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel that way too.
Yeah. And it's the first time we've recorded with Vinnie and Mike, who are both like Vinnie is a very different guitar player than Joe, where Joe is like comes from like hardcore and metal, and Vinnie does too. He's also like he just loves like pop songs, and so he like knows how to write a cool guitar hook, and the guitar playing on that record is like so much of it's switching back and forth between like there's not really like a you're playing lead, I'm playing rhythm. We really had the time to like sit in the rehearsal studio and just like, okay, let's both be playing really interesting things that work together, but you can't really necessarily identify where like, oh, that's this part, that's this. And Mike, who's an incredible bass player and plays like really like wild stuff that we couldn't have done previously, and also writes like really melodically. So we kind of went into it with this idea of like, let's just get as weird as we want. Let's just make whatever we want to make. So, you know, we have a song like Cags, which is literally just like our tribute to our former guitar player because we love him so much. And we wanted to say like, you're always going to be a part of this. If you're not on stage with us, like you're always with us. Yeah. And it was so cool to be able to like give that to him and be like, yo, this is like, here's our tribute to you.
That's sick.
You know, and then like, you know, Harvard on the Hudson, which is like what we grew up calling the community college in Newburgh. Like that song, there was just a lot of stuff for me because like, so Jesse and I wrote a lot of those lyrics together, and there's parts of that song that are like, you know, demons I just hadn't exercised in my life, and it was so cathartic to get that stuff out, and yeah, it was a cool time to be in the band where everything was possible. Mm-hmm. There was no gatekeeping. There was no like, this doesn't fit. It was like, yo, let's make it fit. If anyone did sort of gatekeep, it was probably me. When Jesse sings that line in Seams and Stitches, he came out of the booth so proud of what he had just done. And he goes, what do you think? And I went, you're never going to be able to sing that live. The rhythm's too weird. Yo, if you ever watch a video of us playing that song, watch Jesse like walk over to me and like put his arm around me as he like nails the part. And I'm like, damn it.
That's funny.
Man. It's a special record. I'm glad we're getting this opportunity to talk with you about it, and you know, it's really cool to get to speak to like our favorites along with the bumps we felt. You know, like so much of this discussion has been like the challenges we got to this point, but I could sit back and say truthfully that making that record and the subsequent little bit of touring we got to do on it were just so incredibly fulfilling, man. I'm just so proud of it, so thankful for that chance to make those songs, and heard so many great things from a lot of our friends about how they enjoyed that record over the years and still spinning now, and that just, it's special. It's very cool.
How was the reception when you first put it out?
Honestly, very good. That's the first time we put out a record on a label. That was on Doghouse, which we were very excited about because of their history. Doghouse had put out some amazing bands records in the years past.
I've never even heard of Doghouse.
Okay,
who's like their claim to fame?
They weren't, you know, like I wouldn't call them like a household name at the time, but the records they made, some of them were pretty big. The Get Up Kids, who are like a pretty seminal band in like the kind of emo pop punk lineage, they put out a record called 4 Minute Mile that came out on that label, and that was a big record. And on the pop punk side, very pop. Do you know the band All American Rejects? Do you know that band?
Yeah, I think I heard of that band.
Anyway, they weren't like an influence, I would call it, for our band, but they just so happened to have also put out that solo or that self-titled record they put out that was like their big pop. Mm-hmm. They put that on in Doghouse. So
that album rocks.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're a great band. But yeah, so they had, I guess, done a couple of those bands had kind of made some landmark releases on the label that made it appealing to us. We were approached by like a friend of a friend who was working with them. It felt like a very unique fit for an album. We were also offered contracts to put out records with labels that were maybe more popular at the time for pop punk. Mm-hmm. But we weren't jiving with those. We were looking for something a little different. and the Doghouse thing kind of felt cool. It felt like something different. We would be associated with bands that weren't just a roster of bands that sounded like us. You know, there were labels out there that were putting out pop punk only, and like bands like that, and that's cool, but that wouldn't have been a fit for us. We wanted to kind of cross audiences as often as possible. So.
Nice. So what were they able to do for you as far as like putting the record
Not a whole
out?
hell of a lot, to be honest with you. They were really upside down financially, quietly, when they agreed to put out our record. So they had a little bit of money to get it recorded and a little bit of money to get it pressed, but they had no other money after that. And so we put out the record. It did very, very well in the early releases. They financially also did very well from it. But truthfully, we're using that release as a way to kind of leverage some of their other debts. And we were kind of just a little bit of a pawn in the middle there. So we didn't do a whole lot with them other than their imprint pressed it. The record came out and the music stayed with us, and that's kind of what was most important about it. Those are our songs and our recordings, and that's where it lives today. But as far as like what it was a shot at putting out a label release, and I wouldn't do it again. But we did it, and the record came out, and we're just glad it got out at all. So.
Well, they did the repress for the City Lights shows, right?
No. So they've been like, at the time, as like kind of tense as things were when that record came out, they've been really good to us since. They gave us back the rights to the record, so we were able to do that pressing. They gave us the rights to like put it out in Japan through our Japanese label.
Still had that connect.
Yeah.
Had that connect. We had to.
Yeah, and so like
it's like we know you guys love our music, our pop punk.
So we were able to do that, and like they let us do that. When we wanted to do the repress, Dirk Hemseth, who is Doghouse Records, was like, "Yeah, dude, whatever you guys need." And they've been really good about like keeping in touch with us since. So like we love them, but at the time it was a weird thing to like have a label, to have been so excited about putting a record out through a label and then not really have any support from them.
You're still just doing shit DIY and just like, what did we sign up for?
Yeah, we were right back there again. Yeah, and Dustin did put the proper framework on the relationship as a whole. I should say that I don't mean to degrade the relationship worse than it was. It was tough for us in the moment, but yeah, thankfully they did come correct with it, and so we're able to do what we did with it. And that farewell pressing was something we were able to do with the help of our friend Bean, who runs Panic State Records, and that's how we were able to kind of keep that record alive.
Was Panic State Fireworks?
Nope.
Wait, why have I heard that before?
So there's Panic Records.
Yep, I was just gonna say, yeah.
And that's the one that put out like Young English and Pentimento, right?
Yep. And
then Panic State has like Rebuilder. They had a band called We Were Sharks for a while. Mm-hmm. But it's Brian is his brother is the drummer of Catch 22.
That could be it.
So maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remember. I'm gonna let you guys know after this interview.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I am so mad about is when you guys played those shows with City Lights that I did not pick up one of those copies, because I was just looking at pictures of it today. I was like, oh, that's such a fucking sexy variant.
Oh, we got some of those around.
I'll send you one.
Yeah, man. We got you covered.
Make it happen. I'll Venmo you right now. I got you on Venmo. Let's go.
Thank you for doing this, man. This is cool. We're really glad to get to talk about it. We can definitely get you that copy, no problem.
For sure.
Oh, so also with Seams and Stitches, I was wondering how you guys came up with the artwork for it.
Cool. Yeah, hit it, Justin.
Well, so the original artwork for the record was Lori Shipley. And she's an artist I think she's from Maryland. And I think we found her through, she had done the No Trigger 7-inch and I loved the artwork. And I was like, yo, we should hit her up. And I thought we were going to get like some like wild cartoon looking thing. and it was like perfectly tailored to what the title of the album was, and it was so cool.
Yeah, she did a lot of work on that one. There's like an underlined illustration that you can see if you look at it. That's kind of like there's like an aquatic scene kind of that's like illustrated underneath, and then she scanned in a bunch of fabrics to make the additional layers. And then there is that kind of like cross stitch, like needlepoint style logo that is in the front, and that's just something she made by hand and stitched, and then kind of scanned it all in to make like a multi-layered
collage
record. Yeah, she did such a cool job. It doesn't look like anything else I had seen before. I love the way it came out. And there was no revisions or anything. It was like it showed up and we were all like, whoa, this looks so much cooler than I could have imagined, and didn't know where she was going to take it. But that's one of the cool things I think that, at least in our side, the way we look at it anyways, we often try to work with artists and just let them do their thing versus over correcting or trying to force a certain style out of an artist. Like our buddy Chris Pappas, who does some design work for us. He's one of those dudes we just like to kind of let him do his own thing and just let him take his own creative interpretation of what should be. So.
That's fucking sick. Yeah, no, I feel like if you're working with an artist and you kind of just see what their portfolio looks like, you should kind of just like trust them that they know more than you do, kind of thing.
Yeah, let them do it. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea.
And Chris when we did the repress of Seams and Stitches, he's the one who did the artwork for that. With like
that one's so dope.
Yeah,
he killed it.
And that was another like I think we were just like we like jokingly refer to him as like, oh, he's the head of our art department because he's like a homie and he just does everything. We're like, hey, we're gonna play a show. Do you want to make a shirt? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll have it over in 2 hours. And we're like, yeah. Okay,
right on.
Yeah, he's great.
Chris is really good.
Yeah. But yeah.
So we're gonna take a trip down memory lane to some bands that you might have some fond memories with. So to kick this off, I'm gonna say, Dustin, I believe I saw a Tim Landers tattoo, so I'm guessing that y'all were homies with the R.I.P. By the way, y'all were homies with the Transit Boys.
Transit Forever T-shirt on right now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, because I recorded an album with Nick Brzezzi from Man Overboard, and when they played Warped Tour in Atlantic City, they had a big ass like R.I.P. Tim. Is Tim Landers?
Yep.
Sign right behind their stage, and it just seems like that dude was just like super tight with a lot of the bands at that time. And yeah, I was wondering if you had any memories with Transit.
Yeah, Tim is one of the most incredible songwriters I've ever had the good fortune to know in my life, and incredible guitar player. We met Jesse and I met Transit when like before With the Punches was really doing anything. And so as Transit, like, and that was like, this will not define us. So as they grew, we were growing with the Punches. And so we just got to spend a lot of time with those guys. And they were always super great to us. Jess, do you have any like specific stories?
Yeah. I would say, you know, there was a summer there where we were playing a lot of shows together, and then whenever we'd split up, if they were coming through New York or I was going out to Boston off the road, or the band was going out that way, we always tried to connect and either play shows together or just hang out in between. So there was a little bit of time in the summer when the guys were on the road, and I was home in Newburgh. And the story goes that they were supposed to play a show in New Jersey. Something weird happened with the promoter, and there was a lot of confusion about what was going to go on with the gig and not. And they were like, I think they were leaving Boston late. They like stayed at home that night and were planning to go straight to New Jersey for the show. Something happens and they're like, call me up. And Joe and Tim are on the phone on speaker, and they're just like, dude, the show seems like it's going to be really lame. I don't think we're going to go to New Jersey. We're already halfway.
and we're like maybe a half hour from Newburgh. Like, do you want to just hang out? I'm like, well, no one's at my house. Why don't you just come here? Like, we'll just hang out. And they, as the band they are, were like, feel bad about bailing on the show, but the promoter like didn't do a good job of getting it all together, and for whatever reason they decided to cancel. But they put it out online that they were going to be hanging out at the house and just would record or play songs acoustic for anybody that called. So like they put, I don't know if they put PJ's number up, but they put one of the guys' numbers online and was just like, hey, call us if you want to hear a song. And so the phone calls start coming in and they're playing the songs acoustic. And are you familiar with the song Outbound? Do you know the song Outbound? It's a great song, especially, obviously well suited for playing acoustic on a front porch of a house. But it was like every kid after like the first hour, like everyone just kept calling and asking for the same song. And it wasn't like a live show where you could be like, hey, we just played that, like just go look back at the video. We're just
we had to play it again.
They played it again. They were just like, play it again and play it again and play it again. It was like a comical level. Like people just kept calling and they're like, fuck it, that's what they want to hear. Let's just play them the song. So they just kept playing it over and over again. And just testament to who those guys are. We all had a great time hanging around. And I have a bunch of other really great transit memories, but those stand out a lot. And they're such a great band, and the homies love those guys so much. And I miss Tim terribly. Think about him often, but they're an amazing band.
Hell yeah, that's a really good story. What about the I Call Fives guys? Because I know that you guys have gone on tour with those dudes.
Dustin, tell them about playing. I was talking about GK at House of Blues in Boston, right? I was saying how like it was like one of the best shows we ever played. It was crazy good, right? Dustin, tell them.
So our good friend John James Ryan of the band Keep Flying.
You know those guys?
I met him at he used to tour manage the Wonder Years, and when the GK did a pop-up shop with the Wonder Years, I met him there, and he was showing me off all of his new cartoon tattoos.
Got it. Yeah.
So John is one of my best friends, and I just love that dude. But he's stage managing the GK holiday show at House of Blues in Boston. He's also tight with I Call Fives. And so we're all like, it's just homies, it's a good time. I Call Fives plays before us, and they're playing their set, and John goes, one more, and they go, okay, and they play a song, and they don't stop. They just play that song into another song. And John is like annoyed, and he's the easiest dude to get along with, but man, when you cross a line, he lets you know. And he's just sitting there, he's like this. That song ends and they start another song. And all of With the Punches is side stage looking across the stage at John Ryan, and I see him mouth the words, "You are being a bad friend." And everyone in With the Punches at the same time goes, ooh. Because I can't imagine a worse thing to hear from a person like John than you are.
It's like when your dad's disappointed, right? Like, I'm not mad at you, I'm just disappointed. Yeah.
And they keep playing the song, and so John does the unthinkable and just goes like, and they cut the lights, they cut the power to the stage so the amps just turn off, and it's just like a black stage, and you can hear the drums, and we're just like, damn. You guys blew it. You guys made John Ryan do that to you.
I'm sorry we had to share that story for them, but that's more fun than like the stuff that we would just immediately go to about I Call Fives. We played a lot of shows with I Call between tours and then one-off stuff when we were back home. I love those guys, and they were goofballs, and we had a really good time on the road together. They're great. They really are good guys, and that's like, to me, that memory just always sticks out. So we had to share that one.
Hell yeah. What about, did you guys get to gig with Knuckle Puck?
Yes. Okay, Knuckle Puck story. Good one for sure. When we were playing, let's see. So this would be, that's the Lost for Words State Champs tour. No.
I don't think we ever gigged with Knuckle Puck.
No, but Joe, so my buddy Joe, who sings for Knuckle Puck, he was tight with the Real Friends guys, still is obviously, and at the time was kind of like helping out, doing merch, helping running kind of like day of stuff with the band. And we stayed close throughout. I was in Chicago not last year, but the year before, and I got to spend time with Joe and Dan both. Love those guys. Yeah, they're like they're in this like little cluster of bands that we feel so like proud of and glad to have been a part of their history. Some of them like getting to play their first couple shows, like Real Friends. Knuckle again didn't play many shows with, but Real Friends very early on. We had them playing shows and we were playing shows with them. Yeah, I feel like that crowd, like Neck Deep, Knuckle, Real Friends, State Champs, like all these bands that were a couple years behind us, but we all kind of had like a common concept. We were all shooting for connecting with an audience that was digging the sound we were making. And man, so cool to see how those bands have grown in the last few years.
Yeah, I got to see Real Friends and Knuckle both come up together like through the pop punk like Chicago like circuit, and that was dope. But I wanted to say that I hear a lot of Dan, the singer of Real Friends, vocal melodies come from some With the Punches stuff, like especially with like how he doesn't rhyme a lot of his lyrics. I'm like, that sounds like something Jesse would do in With the Punches.
That's interesting that you would say that, and Dustin would probably say the same thing. Yeah, he doesn't rhyme the lyrics very often, but yeah, very often I don't. And that's funny you'd say that. Dan is the homie. When they first started playing shows with us, he was always wearing a With the Punches sweatshirt, and he was open to talk to me a whole lot about like, you know, his love for the band. And I feel weird saying that, but he totally is one of those dudes that I embraced, and I was so glad to like hear what he's done musically. I love all the Rationale songs.
Oh fuck, they just dropped one.
Yeah, they just put another new one out. It's really good, and they continue to write great songs. All those guys just seem to keep getting better, and I'm like just glad to see the progression. But yeah, I love them, and I think they just keep making more good music. Knuckle one of those bands I just like, they don't write bad songs as far as I'm concerned. They just keep making more and more really good music. So
yeah, fun fact, I was in the Real Friends music video for Mess.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you know that one, but it's like it's all Halloween themed.
Yeah, okay, I know that one.
It cuts really quick to me making out with my ex-girlfriend in the party scene, and that's my claim to fame with Real Friends. But
how does it feel for you now? Do you look at it and you're like, hey, look at me go, or are you like, ah?
It's good memories. I mean, I love Real Friends. She loved Real Friends, so it was good times.
All right, good. That's good. At least it's not a weird spot where you're like, I can't watch this.
Nah. We actually we co-own a Shiba Inu together.
Whoa. Okay, that's good.
So at the end of the month, I have to give the dog back, but you know.
Okay, that's fair. I've been in one of those co-pet ownership relationships before. That's a challenge.
It's not that bad.
No? All right.
It's possible. We have probably another good 10 years that
of this dog being
around.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make it count. You know what I mean?
You know, that's very good. That's very mature of you. Just keep together for the kids. You know, that's very good.
Facts. Yeah. All right. So what about this? So State Champs, they were coming up a little bit after you guys, but you know, New York bands. You guys have any memories with those dudes?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember the first time we saw them playing. They were playing like the Loft at GK Fest one year, and they were they played a Kid Dynamite cover.
Yeah, they did cover a Kid Dynamite back then.
And
it's like a band that Dustin and I really, really like. They're from Philly. Do you know about Kid Dynamite?
Sounds familiar.
Man, this is gonna go back a little bit, but if you want some new homework for like influential bands that really made it happen, we would definitely have not started the band if it were not for a band like Kid Dynamite, if not them alone. Yeah, they covered a tune of theirs, State Champs did, but yeah, I fucking love Kid Dynamite.
That's sick.
For
sure.
And we didn't know them, and like Poughkeepsie's our hometown, you know what I mean? Like so this band who's not from our hometown on like our home turf playing a Kid Dynamite cover, and I just remember looking at Jesse and like, who the fuck are these kids? And they were awesome, and like they, you know, we got to do a bunch of tours with them, and just great dudes.
Oh yeah.
Really, really love them. Love seeing, every time I'm like out in public and I see some kid in a state champs shirt, I'm like, fucking right. Yeah.
I remember when they put out the Finer Things album, that shit was being the GK office was spinning that record like crazy.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that was a good time for them.
Killer
For
band.
sure.
What about My Only Escape? They were one of the first bands you guys toured with, right?
For sure. Those guys are local, very, very good friends of ours. We still stay tight and talk to pretty much everybody in that band at this point. And yeah, they were like, I would say our closest peers in terms of playing shows and people that we connected with move by move. It's Not the End of the World is a My Only Escape song. That's where that title came from for the record, With Their Okay. They hadn't done much touring. They just played locally and recorded a bunch, and they made a really fun, really cool record called From Tiger Woods. And we did a string of shows when that first came out. Great band, man. Super fun. They definitely were, like some of our closest friends in touring.
Sick. What about Vinnie Caruana? I know Dustin was saying that like your guys' careers were kind of like intertwined. Can we talk a little bit about that?
For sure. Vinnie was playing acoustic shows and doing Avalanche, but no movie life at that point when we first started with the Punches. So our second show was with Avalanche. And then that same year, months down the line, it was like we just happened to play some more gigs with Vinnie where he was doing solo acoustic stuff. And then more Avalanche stuff would happen and we'd play more gigs with Avalanche. So we just became friends, and Vinnie's tight with my friend John Gorman, who lives in the area. And we kind of just always stayed connected. So Vinnie comes up this way a little bit here and there, and I hope to see him again soon. And then, the most recent like blossoming of more movie life songs has been a nice treat for everyone. I think like nobody expected that, and those songs are great.
New direction. Yeah.
So good, man. It's so good. And, they haven't lost a step. So that was cool. Love their band and love the new Avalanche record. Dive is fantastic. If you haven't listened to it much, it's really, really.
Oh, that dropped the other day, right?
It's pretty recent, but it's very good. Yeah, I'd suggest it. It's probably my favorite Avalanche record so far. It's just really, really good. So we've been tight with Vinnie for a while.
I'm trying to remember what album I was last listening to. I think it was The Movie Life. Oh, whatever. All right, I want to wrap it up for you guys. But what can we expect in the future? Is there a future? Is there going to be shows when shows come back? Is there going to be new music? Are we going to get a follow-up LP? Are we going to get a follow-up EP? What's going on?
So we were very fortunate to have put some plans in motion to make some music pre-COVID. And we're pretty sure that was not going to be a thing, obviously, as it put the stops to a lot of projects for a lot of people. But as we mentioned early on in this discussion, like we finished our last show and we were still sending demos back and forth to each other about Future with the Punches songs. And it was always just in that pile of Future with the Punches stuff. So there was never that like total burnout. We really did believe that eventually we'd get to make some songs. Fast forward, right before COVID, we tracked some new songs, and I was able to like kind of piece in appointments to record vocals afterwards. And so, we finished a record, and it's called Discontent, and we are going to put it out later this year. It's pretty fun for us to have something again that's like ours that we haven't shared a ton about. And we like the idea of
putting it out in places like this, where folks who are eager to hear about what's going on with Punches will sit through an interview and hear about the old stuff and then look around for something new, because this is that time, I guess, where we get to say it. So yeah, we have a new record. We're going to put it out ourselves. It will be out later this year. We'll get plans for singles and stuff. The record's already mastered, which means that it will be in process to get pressed in the near future. And yeah, I feel so excited to share these songs, and I hope you enjoy them. We'll definitely keep you posted about that. But yeah, when there's gigs, if there's the right time and the right place, we will show up for that for sure.
Hell yeah. No, so what kind of music are we expecting? Like, are we picking up where we last left off, or are we going to try something? Yeah? Yeah,
man. If you enjoyed Seams and Stitches, if you enjoyed stuff we did previously, I think you'll find pieces of it all. But I think that Dustin obviously should chime in on this too. But I think we had created some momentum with the way we wrote the last couple songs, and somehow managed to just keep tending to that concept over the years. There are some demos that didn't make the record that were just like, they were the marker points that made it clear we had another record in us. There's a song that Dustin and I wrote in his basement when he was still living in PA. And there's just something about the 45 seconds or however long it is of this thing that we would both listen to it randomly and then text each other about it. Like, hey man, you know that tune. And that's how the discussions would continue. It's like, it was the piece that we just kept between us that said, there is another record in the chamber. Can't wait to make it. And then fast forward, a lot of great demos and such came through from Dustin and Vinnie, our other guitar player. And they were undeniable with the Punches songs being formed. So we kind of had to record them. So that's where we're at.
Dude,
pretty excited.
I am so excited to give that a listen.
Yeah, thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk about, where we've been and what we plan to do. And I think this is a really great thing that you're doing, and I hope you continue to keep exploring this option, and you get to make more music when all this pops off. So what's the band you were in, and what are you doing musically after this?
So all right, so if the people are sticking around for the end of this, I'll say
this is the long edit. Yeah.
So I was in a band called Heaven's Sake. We were like an emo revival band. We kind of sound like Armor for Sleep, kind of like a drive-through. I love
Armor for Sleep.
Like drive-through records era type of band.
Sweet.
We broke up, and now me and my roommate were working on some emo witch house electronic music.
Whoa.
And I just do my vocals over it. It's the same thing I do for Heaven's Sake, but I don't know. It's weird. We've only done a couple of recording sessions, but we're having a lot of fun doing it, and that's all I'm trying to do at this point.
That's exactly it. That is what matters. So it'll be fun. You'll enjoy it, and that's cool, man. I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, I'll send you it.
Good, please do. Seriously, yeah.
That's pretty much it. Do you guys have any final words for the fans?
See you soon.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would say for a message to the fans, if there was a thing to be said, it's that these are extremely hard times, and being in a band, having some degree of a small platform where we have connected with folks, I hope that it's clear that we continue to put ourselves in this position to represent this band as a way to connect with people. That's been the whole point of the band from day one. If you or anyone you know struggles with topics that you can't find a way to talk about, we felt like the band is a vehicle for that discussion. As unfamiliar or awkward as that might be for you to reach out to a total stranger in a band, please do, take that time, reach out, ask us questions, start a band, do something you really care about. We have been a band that tried to push that passion agenda. And so I would leave it with that if you have that desire within you, that you should absolutely pursue it. It is, it's a life-changing opportunity you may not realize is right there.
Love it. Dustin, anything?
I think that pretty much sums it up, man. I hate to I have this thing where I run my mouth too much, but Jesse pretty much...
He killed it.
There's a reason why he's the singer, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why he's the one with the microphone. He's good at it.
Hell yeah. Well, Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been an honor to have you guys tell you the history of the band, your guys' story. Very stoked for new music, and hopefully we get new shows soon. Thanks for watching To All the Crowded Rooms, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You get the alert as soon as the episode's posted. And thank you for watching.
'Cause I made decisions and mistakes on my head. I kept it together when everyone I know just fell in love with being miserable. And I made decisions and mistakes on my head. I kept it together when everyone I know just fell in love with being miserable. You're too young to listen.